When the show Overhaul started on TV, Chip Foose became super famous. He wasn't just another builder, he was the builder. His designs looked amazing, the reveals were touching, and he looked great on camera. People didn't just like his work, they believed he was a good person. He seemed like someone who was both really good at building cars and also a really good guy. Everyone thought he was the perfect family man. He seemed humble, down to earth, and happily married. He showed up at events with his wife all the time, and it was sweet. At car shows, interviews, and behind-the-scenes videos, they told nice stories about how she helped his career and how they shared the same dreams. It was the kind of sweet relationship that made him different from other people in the car world who had big egos. Every time Chip talked about his team, you could tell family was important to him. His fans weren't just watching a designer, they trusted him and believed in loyalty and love. Even his car sketches seemed to show that energy. They were careful, thoughtful, and full of purpose. He wasn't trying to show off, he was serious about his work. In magazines, he'd have his arm around his wife, both smiling easily like everything in life was perfect. It was the kind of love story you wanted to cheer for, one where being really creative didn't mean your personal life had to suffer. For many years, that image stayed strong. But as the show got more popular and Chip got busier, small problems started to show up. Nothing big at first, no scandals, no big news stories, but little changes. How he appeared in public changed. Interviews became more careful. He talked less and less about his family life. The perfect image still looked good on the outside, but underneath, something had changed, and fans started noticing it. For years, Chip Foose seemed perfect. Not just as a designer, but as a person too. But when Overhaul became super popular, and his name meant perfect car builds and happy reveals, the quiet around his personal life started to mean something. Fans on websites began asking questions like, why isn't his wife in episodes anymore? Why does Chip seem less excited in some interviews? Why are there fewer casual moments? No more talk about vacations, family dinners, or how she helps keep me balanced. The change was small but clear. The man who used to share so much about what made him successful had gotten quiet about it. It started with people guessing. Maybe he was just stressed. Maybe the show had just changed. But when someone is famous, small things missing can say a lot. Fans who had watched for a long time started looking closely at recent appearances. They noticed she wasn't at award shows anymore. Photos from public events showed Chip with his team members, but never with the woman who used to stand next to him. Even social media, which usually shows lots of personal stuff, didn't have any clues. No family photos, no posts about anniversaries, nothing at all. The whispers got louder, and while nothing was ever confirmed back then, the fans who really cared started to feel that something had changed behind the scenes. There was no scandal, no crazy tabloid stories, just silence. The kind of silence that makes people wonder what's going on. And when there's nothing being said, people start making up their own theories. Was there trouble at home? Did running a huge business start to hurt something more personal? To many people, the situation felt weird. He had always stood for doing the right thing, being consistent, and staying committed. But now questions hung in the background of every episode. Viewers weren't just watching for the cars anymore. They were watching for clues and signs, and what they saw made them uncomfortable and worried about what was really happening. When Chip Foose went from being a respected designer to a super famous person, not many people could have guessed how fast the spotlight would grow. The man who used to work quietly in a Southern California shop now had camera crews in his face all the time. Millions of people watching everything he did, and clients flying in from all over the world to work with him. But with all that fame came something way more demanding than just a TV schedule. Expectations from everyone. Fans wanted perfection every time. Clients wanted miracles. TV networks wanted content. And Chip delivered it, over and over. But it came at a price he had to pay. The cost of that fame wasn't easy to see at first. Chip was always super professional, smiling, calm, and in control of everything. But behind the scenes, people close to the shop say it was different. Really long hours, starting work super early, endless changes to designs, missed dinners at home, cancelled trips. The kind of sacrifices that don't show up on screen, but add up in real life, especially at home with family. His shop wasn't just a business to him, it was his legacy, what he'd leave behind. But as it grew bigger, the gap between work and family grew too. Keeping everything balanced became harder and harder. While the cameras filmed Chip creating another masterpiece car, him not being home became more and more obvious. And slowly, inevitably, the pressure started to break down the foundation he'd always valued most: his marriage to his wife. People who've worked with Chip say he gets focused to a fault, maybe too focused. When he's in design mode, the whole world disappears around him. And that gift, what made him so brilliant at his work, may have also made him unavailable to his family. Not that he was cold or mean, but he was emotionally consumed by his work. Add in traveling around the world for appearances, speaking at events, and the huge responsibility of running Chip's design business, and you have a man being pulled in 100 different directions at once. Fame, ironically, made him less visible to the one place he used to care about most: his own home and family. Ask anyone close to Chip Foose, and they'll say the same thing about him. The man doesn't stop working. From the early days of building hot rods with his dad, to designing award-winning custom cars in front of TV cameras, Chip's work ethic has always been almost obsessive, like he can't stop. And that obsession, while inspiring to many, may have cost him something even he didn't fully see until it was too late and the damage was done. Because when you pour every bit of yourself into your work, there's not always enough left over for the people who matter most in your life. Chip wasn't just building cars for customers. He was building an empire, a huge business. The name Chip became the same as excellence and quality. There were deadlines to meet, employees to pay, deals to close, and reputations to protect and maintain. While other shops chased fame and attention, Chip built quietly and carefully, with his name on the line every single time. And when you carry that kind of weight and responsibility, personal life often becomes a distant second priority. Some insiders say Chip would work through holidays when everyone else was off, skip family events and gatherings, and disappear into his design loft for days at a time. Not because he was mean or didn't care, but because he had a mission to complete. He wasn't trying to ignore anyone on purpose, he just couldn't shut it off in his brain. His mind was always sketching, analyzing, and refining designs. It's the kind of mindset that produces brilliance and amazing work. But sometimes it also produces isolation and loneliness. Over time, those missed moments stack up and add up. The partner who once understood the hard work begins to feel forgotten and left behind. The shared life becomes parallel tracks going in different directions. Same house but different worlds. And the empire, it grows bigger and bigger, but the connection between two people, it fades away slowly. In interviews after the divorce, Chip's tone shifted and changed slightly. He was still gracious and kind, still passionate about his work, but with a subtle weight behind his words, as if the cost of greatness had finally made itself known to him. Not in scandal or drama, but in the quiet recognition that sometimes building dreams means losing the ones you built them for in the first place. Behind every empire lies a story few people get to see or know about. In Chip Foose's case, that story may have involved a financial wound or money problem he never let the public notice or know about. While his business seemed solid from the outside, booming shop, premium merchandise, high-profile builds, whispers from insiders suggest there may have been something hidden beneath the surface, a financial strain that threatened everything he'd built over the years. Some former associates quietly say that Chip's design business was forced to absorb a costly mistake that hurt them. A failed investment, a bad deal with a parts supplier, or even a quiet legal settlement that cost money. Whatever the cause was, it allegedly created mounting tension both in the shop and at home with his family. One former contractor recalled hearing about a check that bounced during a build that should have never had budgeting issues or money problems. Another source claimed that Chip, known for perfection, was taking on more client cars than ever before. Not because he wanted to do more, but because he had to for the money. What does this have to do with the marriage and divorce? Everything, actually. If you're already stretched emotionally, working long hours and sacrificing time at home, and then a financial curveball hits you, it's often the final crack in the foundation of a relationship. Even worse, Chip may have kept it quiet to protect his brand and reputation, to protect her too. No public lawsuit, no public fallout, just quiet stress, silent dinners, sleepless nights, and a widening emotional gap between two people. Those closest to the family believed this financial stress was never about greed or wanting more money. It was about pride and reputation. Chip didn't want to admit there was a problem brewing, not to fans, not to the press, maybe not even to his partner at home. And so the man known for fixing cars with perfect symmetry slowly lost balance in his personal life and marriage. If true, it paints a much more human story about him. One of a man juggling everything at once: business, fame, art, love, and finally running out of hands to hold it all. When most celebrity relationships fall apart, the whole world knows about it. Press releases fly everywhere, gossip sites churn out stories. But when Chip Foose's marriage came to an end, it was as quiet as a closing garage door after hours, when everyone has gone home. There were no major announcements, no social media meltdowns, no TMZ cameras or dramatic interviews on TV. Just silence and nothing more. And yet that silence was deafening to longtime fans who had followed him for years. Those paying close attention saw the shift happen. No more posts with his wife, no family photos at car shows, no mentions of anniversaries or shared milestones together anymore. Slowly but surely, it became clear something had changed in his life. And while the Chip brand stayed polished and perfect, the man behind it looked just a little more reserved, a little more distant than before. Public records later confirmed what many people suspected all along. A legal separation and eventual divorce had happened. But the filings were sealed shut, the details locked tight and hidden. No alimony drama, no custody battles over kids, just a clean legal line drawn across years of partnership and marriage. And for many fans, that raised more questions than answers it provided. Why the silence? Why the effort to keep everything under wraps and hidden? Some say it was Chip's way of protecting what remained of his personal life from public view. Others believe it was mutual, a quiet agreement to part ways without spectacle or drama. Either way, it was a far cry from the way most public figures handled divorce in the spotlight. And maybe that's the most Chip thing about it, and true to who he is. He didn't air grievances publicly. He didn't throw blame at anyone. He simply kept building cars and moving forward. But if you looked closely at him, his smile on camera wasn't quite the same as before. Not fake or forced, but not as full of joy. Like a man who knew the cost of privacy and paid it in full without complaining. Digging into Chip Foose's divorce is like trying to restore a rusted-out barn-find car. You know the story's in there somewhere, but the surface reveals very little to see. Official records verify that a dissolution of marriage took place legally, but almost every detail remains sealed and hidden from view. There's no dramatic lawsuit, no tell-all book written, just a quiet line in the county ledger tucked away like a misfiled invoice nobody notices. But that hasn't stopped people from speculating about what really happened and why it ended. Some fans believe there was infidelity or cheating, though no credible source has confirmed this theory. Others suggest emotional burnout, the kind that builds after decades of pressure and stress. A few even think the two simply outgrew each other over time. High school sweethearts split by the forces of fame and time passing. Whatever the truth really is, one thing is certain and clear. It wasn't just a minor speed bump in life. It marked a turning point for him. After the divorce happened, some noticed a change in Chip's output and work. The cars were still immaculate and perfect, but something felt different about them. The heart was still there in the work, but maybe the joy was harder to find now. Interviewers reported that he was still gracious and friendly to everyone, but far more guarded when asked about anything personal in his life. One journalist even said, "It's like he built a firewall around his soul to protect himself." This shift didn't affect the brand's success at all, though. If anything, it made fans rally behind him more than ever. They saw the pain behind the polish and perfection. The man who gave so much to the car world, quietly carrying a weight no one could quite name or understand. And while the court documents may never tell the full story to anyone, they confirm what many suspected was happening. Something big changed behind the scenes in his life, and Chip, he kept showing up every day. Quiet, steady, and alone now. For years, Chip Foose was the face and soul of his design company. His vision shaped every line, every weld, every stroke of color on the cars. But after the divorce, some fans and insiders noticed something shift in the work. The builds were still beautiful to look at, but they no longer carried that same intangible spark and feeling. The emotional pulse that made Chip's creations feel alive and special. It wasn't that the work suffered technically or in quality. It was something deeper, something harder to measure with tools. The passion behind the process of creating.